This is where it would have been easier with the right tools. Off we go.
Those hazard lights can't stop me. I just hold on for dear life. Yeah, I can't.
Hey, welcome back to Angel Family Adventures. Today we're going to be talking about weight distribution and the installation of the Husky brand weight distribution hitch. We'll talk about a few things that I did wrong the first time I installed this hitch and what I should have done to do it right. We'll show the complete installation of this hitch, including the sway control, which this particular model of Husky weight distribution hitch came with. So stick around, we'll show you how all it's done. One thing about camping is that you will learn all new things about towing and hooking up and everything like that. Now, I've towed trailers my whole life. I've towed flatbed trailers and box trailers and stuff like that, but I've never towed anything heavy enough to require a weight distribution hitch. So I didn't really know how to set one of those up. Do me a favor, read the directions. I did not do that, and I hooked up my weight distribution hitch improperly, and I towed it home, towed the trailer at home that way. Now, I was very fortunate. I didn't have an accident, nothing happened, but that could not only have endangered myself, but it could have also endangered other drivers on the road. So please read the directions, make sure you're hooking up your weight distribution hitch right. So today, I've actually got the camper out here in the road, and I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the weight distribution hitch the right way so that we can go on our shakedown trip here in the next week or so. And I know that I'm safe, not only with the trailer, but also with the truck and everything like that. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble what I assembled the first time and reassemble it the right way. So one of the things that I didn't do right the first time is I didn't have the right tools on hand. Now, I still don't have all of the exact right tools, but I'm a lot closer than I was when I first hooked this up. The other thing, like I mentioned, read the directions. One of the things that I didn't do when I hooked this up is you have this spacer and these washers that go right down in here. And what these are for is to actually maintain the proper tilt on this ball and this surface right here. I didn't do that. Yes, that's dangerous. It's not safe. Again, I didn't read the directions. I hadn't watched enough videos, read enough stuff before I hooked this weight distribution hitch up. I did it wrong. So please learn from my mistake. Hook up this weight distribution hitch the right way so that you're safe and you've got it all together and you don't have to worry about it in the future. Do it once, do it right. I'm more of the measure once, cut twice kind of person, unfortunately. So I'm going to fix this and we'll get it done the right way. Get on a fairly level, flat surface, and then you need to measure the trailer to make sure that the trailer is flat front to back. So I've already adjusted mine, and I am at about 21 5/8 in the front and 21 5/8 in the rear, measured from the ground to the frame. Now, I've measured on both sides, so I know I'm pretty close, but like I said, make sure your trailer is level front to back. And once your trailer is level, you need to make sure that you take a measurement of how high the tongue on the trailer is so that you can properly set the hitch ball height on the weight distribution hitch. So I am at 20 5/8. So I go to the page in the instruction manual that talks about measuring the tongue height on the trailer. Right here I've got the illustration that shows the tongue height. So I'm going to write right here 20 5/8. So the next thing on the instructions is to determine your target uncoupled ball height. So that's the height of this right here. Now, according to these instructions, now every weight distribution hitch is a little bit different, but according to these instructions, my target uncoupled ball height should be 1 inch higher than what this measurement is right here, what the measurement was in step number 2, the tongue height of the trailer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and measure this. Since I've got it set up right here, I'm going to go ahead and measure this and see if that ball height is correct so that I know that the holes that I'm in right here are correct. Once I know that those holes are correct, I can go ahead and take this off and reassemble this piece the right way, like it should be, like I said, with those spacers in there, so I've got the proper tilt. I'm at 22.5 on my uncoupled ball height right now. So 22.5 to 20 5/8. I am almost 2 inches above where I should be. So ideally I need this to drop down about 1 inch. So it looks like I may need to go down 1 set of holes on this particular coupler right here. So I'll make sure that I get that done, and then we will, as I'm doing that, I'll install the spacers and everything right here like I should have the first time. So like I mentioned, one of the things that I didn't do right the first time I hooked this up was I did not put this together right. So I showed you the spacer right here that actually goes right in here to help maintain that proper tilt on the hitch. I showed just a second ago that I don't have the proper ball height right here, and this adjustment screw down here, which you can't see, this adjustment screw right here, I did not properly adjust either. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that fixed right now so that when we go on our first shakedown trip, everything is set up right and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So here we go. This is where it would have been easier with the right tools. So now that I've got that off, I need to go down about an inch. So I'm going to go down to the next hole right here and put those bolts back in. Now before I tighten these down, the purpose of doing this whole thing was to make sure that my uncoupled ball height was within an inch of this tongue right here. And it looks like with the proper tilt on that from the pavement, I will be at about 21.5. Okay, so I have the pin and the 4 washers in the upper unthreaded hole like the instructions say. The next thing it says is to grab the cone washer and the top bolt and put it through this top hole. That's something that I did right the first time. So I know exactly what to do there. Take the other cone washer and put it on the other side, and then take the lock nut and put it on that top bolt so you can tighten that down. Now it says, I'm not going to tighten this down just yet, it says to make sure that the ball and this piece is either vertical or has a slight rearward slant. So if I tilt this up, that is exactly vertical right there. Now from what I've seen, actually that looks like it's tilted a little bit forward. So what I'm going to do, and it says that you may need to add or remove washers to get the proper adjustment. It says 4, but it says add or remove to get everything right. Drop that washer there. So what I'm going to do is I've got to take that top bolt out so I've got clearance to take this pin out, if I can get it out without dropping all the washers. So I've got that out. You can see I've got 4 washers on there. So I actually want a slight rearward slant on that, because what I've seen and what I've heard from a lot of people is that it actually tows a little bit better if it has a slight rearward slant. Plus, like I said, I was just a little bit off, so I want to make sure that I am tilted rearward just a slight bit so I can try to get closer to that inch that I need to be. So if I do that, tilt that forward, I've got just a slight rearward slant. Not much at all, but just very, very slight. So I'm going to go ahead and set that in just like that. I'm happy with that. Grab this other washer, put it back on here. Okay, now I've got all my bolts tight. I've got these back bolts tight here. I have my washers in there. I actually ended up with 6 washers in there. I do actually notice that those are just a tad bit loose. I may actually tighten that up a little bit later to make sure that that's in there. But I've also got this adjustment bolt down here that I've tightened down a little bit. And I actually am going to make sure that that's snug just a little bit more, because I did tighten those upper bolts down after I did that. So there we go. Now that's tight. Those washers in there are a little bit tighter. So the next measurements that you need to take are to measure the tow vehicle. So you want to measure front fender to pavement and back fender to pavement. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to measure from the pavement to the lip of the fender, but you can also pick any spot on the fender. I've seen people take painter's tape and put on the fender and mark a little line right there. I'm not actually going to do that on my truck, but I want to just measure to that bottom lip of the fender, because I can see that pretty well. It's pretty defined on my truck, and I think that'll get me where I need to go. You want to make sure you're right in the middle of the wheel right there and coming straight up to the fender, so you get an accurate measurement there. I'm going right, moved it right there. I'm going right through the center of my wheel, and I'm at 40 1/16. So grabbed my papers here, rear fender to pavement, 40 1/16. So now I'm going to go measure the front. All right, so the front is at 38 7/16. The reason you're doing that is because when you back up the truck, raise the trailer up, and put the weight down onto the hitch, you want to make sure that you can get your measurements back to where they need to be. There's a specification for the front, specification for the rear. On the front, you want to be within about 1 inch of where you're at. On the back, you want to be within 1 inch to 1.5 inches of where you're at on your measurement. And that's what the weight distribution hitch does, is it helps take that load off the truck so that you can maintain that ride height and maintain control. Now, I've got airbags on the back of this truck as well, so I'm going to use the airbags for that fine tuning right at the end. I'm going to get that weight distribution hitch as close as I can, and I'm going to use those airbags, put maybe 15-20 psi in those airbags, and get that rear up to where it needs to be as close as possible to that pre-measurement that I've written down on here, the 38 and 7/16. So I'm going to go ahead and raise the trailer up. I'm going to back the truck up to the coupler. I'm going to go ahead and finish this setup. Another thing you want to go ahead and do as well is actually get these bars onto the hitch before you back it up. Now you want to make sure that they're swung out, obviously, so they don't hit anything, so you're not getting something in the way, something caught. But one of the measurements you need to take is from the bottom of this to the ground. Now again, that's for this specific type of hitch that I've got on this truck. Check the instructions on your particular hitch to make sure that you're doing that right. But I need to take the measurements there and make sure that I'm about 8-9 inches from the ground to this right here, from the ground to this piece right here on this bar. I'm just a tad over 8 inches, about 8 1/8 on the height of these bars right here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and back this up, get that under the coupler where it needs to be, and we'll see what we need to do for additional adjustments. My truck's new enough that I've got the backup camera right here on the tailgate, so I'm pretty fortunate there. I don't need to have a spotter. But if you don't have the backup camera, make sure you have a spotter when you're backing up. The last thing you want to do is run this hitch into the tongue jack of the trailer, cause all kinds of problems. Also, I'd highly recommend, this is something that I've just gotten used to doing, that when you get your truck, if you have a backup camera, get used to the way the hitch looks with the coupler in your backup camera when it's lined up right. So get a spotter the first time, back it up where you need to be, get that coupler right above your hitch, and then take a look at that in the camera. If you need to, use your phone, take a picture of the way it looks, but ingrain that in your memory as to how that looks, so that as you're backing up, if you have to do it yourself, it's always good to have a spotter, even if you don't need one, but if you have to do it yourself, you can back up, you can see that image in your backup camera, and you can know exactly where you're at to make sure that you're right. Now, there's some newer trucks, I believe, that have a double camera up here that looks right down on it, so you can actually see for sure if you're right over it. That's great. Mine's a newer truck, but it's not that new. All right, so what I did right there is I've got that locked in. I'm gonna go ahead and go get my pin to put in there just to make sure it's secure. And then the next step in the instructions is to actually raise this up 6 to 9 inches. I do have this locked on there, so I am gonna be raising the truck up a little bit, but you raise it up 6 to 9 inches so that you can take the strain, the weight off the chains and actually get the chains hooked up to the brackets on the trailer. So I'm gonna go do that. Now you wanna be careful. It says 6 to 9 inches in the instructions. Obviously you don't wanna raise it too much. You do not, absolutely do not wanna get the back wheels of your vehicle off the ground. It would take quite a bit to do that, but you do wanna be paying attention. You don't wanna raise the vehicle too high. You also don't want too much strain on the motor in this trailer jack right here, because you don't wanna be lifting the entire weight of your vehicle with this trailer jack. Get it up just enough that you've got the strain off those bars and those chains. Okay, so you can see that I've already got these brackets on here for the chains on the weight distribution hitch. Like I said, I hooked this up and I hooked it up wrong when I picked up this trailer, so these are already on here. There's a bolt back here in the back that actually tightens these to the frame. Now I did another thing as well. I actually took that bolt out once I got home. I went to Lowe's and got a shorter bolt because the bolt that was on there was about 4 to 5 inches long, and it actually went back and made it rather difficult to make sure that it was tightened down. So I took that bolt, got the same thread of bolt, the same hardness of bolt, I believe it's a grade 8, and got a shorter one and put it on here so that I can actually tighten it down better. Now I didn't get too short, so I still have enough bolt to go through and tighten it down, but I did get shorter to make it a little bit easier to access. One of the things that I'm not really happy about with this trailer and this weight distribution hitch setup is you can see that these chains, if I take them straight up, they are just a little bit behind that hook right there. They should be even with that hook. Unfortunately, where my bracket is at and where my battery tray is at, I can't go back any further. So I think I'll be okay for now. I'm gonna do a little bit more checking just to make sure, but what I may eventually do is take this trailer up to a local shop, have those welds cut, have that battery box moved back, and have it re-welded on there. I do have a welder. I'm not good at it, so I'm gonna leave that to the professionals. Now, the next thing it says to do is to use the chain to measure where you need to install the bracket. Like I said, I've already got the bracket installed, so I'm not going to do that step. But the step after that is to take this chain, pull it up, look at the link. I'm supposed to do that with this bracket up. Take this chain, pull it up to that bracket with it in the up position, mark the length that is closest to that, or note the length that is closest to that, and mark the one below it. So this link right here is actually closest to being hooked onto that one. So I'm going to go with this next link lower right there, and I'm going to actually write down on my instructions how many links that leaves hanging. That leaves 6 links hanging. So I'll mark that in my phone. That way I have that when I'm hooking up later on, but also so I can do the other side the same way. So next thing you do is get that chain hooked onto that bracket right there like that. Use the pole that comes with it. Put that on there. Now get your hands back out of the way, because once this goes up, it snaps into place. I can take a finger off pretty easily. So you see that looked kind of difficult to get on there. That's fine. You want that to be difficult to get on there because you want to make sure that it's tight once it goes on there. Ultimately, this bar should be pretty parallel with the trailer tongue right here. Now mine looks to be pretty parallel, maybe just a little bit off, but I don't think that it's enough off that going up a link would actually fix it. I think going up a link would actually make it worse. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the other side, and then we'll see where we're at when we let the trailer down. So another thing you want to do as well is you want to make sure that you've got these pins engaged into the holes on these brackets here. Obviously, if you don't, those brackets can come down as you're driving down the road and be a pretty dangerous situation there as well. There we go. Now that I've got all that done, I'm going to go ahead and lower the trailer tongue back down, get all the weight off the trailer and back onto the vehicle. Alright, so now I've got the weight of the trailer off the tongue jack. I've got it back onto the hitch. The next thing I'm going to do is take my measurements on my front and rear wheel wells to see where I ended up after doing all the adjustments. So I went ahead and took all of my measurements, and to start I was at 38 7/16 on the front fender. To end, I'm at 38 9/16. Rear fender to pavement, I was at 40 1/16, and now I'm at 39. I also measured the trailer as well, and I'm level on the trailer front to back. I was at 21 5/8 before. I'm at 21 5/8 now in the front and the back on the trailer. So now, like I mentioned before, I've got the airbags on the back right here. Even though I am less than an inch away from my original starting rear height, I can go ahead and use those airbags to get that additional height back on there and provide just a little bit more cushion on that rear as I go over bumps and stuff like that. So I'll probably do that just to get those airbags get the rear where they need to be with those airbags. The last thing that I've got to do to finish this weight distribution hitch setup is to install the sway control. Now, the first time I took this trailer and weighed it with the truck hooked up, I didn't have this sway control on there, and I'll tell you, I could really feel the sway. So what this sway control bar does is it essentially has a brake mechanism inside this piece right here. It hooks to the hitch right there, and then you will have your plate mounted on the trailer right there, and this bar, like I said, has that brake inside there that acts to control that sway as it happens with the trailer. You've got this lever right here that you can turn to increase or decrease the pressure on the sway control. Now, this is not something that you leave hooked up all the time. When you're backing up, you take this off, but when you're driving down the road in a straight line or just going down the road in general, you want to have this on there. Like I said, it helps control that sway back and forth and really helps, especially with a half-ton pickup in this 32-foot trailer. So the instructions say to measure 24 inches from the center of the coupler back on the trailer frame to install the plate, which is right here. So I will get that measurement and get this installed. And there we go, all done. Got the bolts installed on the frame of the trailer. I've got the sway bar in place. It's all ready to go for the next time we want to take a trip. I think I've got my weight distribution hitch set up properly now. I'm going to go weigh this thing. Here we go, off to weigh the trailer. I have actually downloaded the Cat Scales app on my phone, so it should make it a whole lot easier. I don't actually have to go in, tell them what I'm doing, go through and do everything. I can actually just get on my phone, hit the app, hit weigh, charges my credit card, no big deal. That's a good thing because I weighed the truck before empty, so I know what the truck weighs But now I've got to go through and weigh the truck with the trailer properly so that I know if I've got that weight distribution hitch set up right. And what I'll do is I'll go through and weigh it the first time. I'll take a look at the measurements to see exactly what tongue weight it added to the truck based on my previous weight. And then if I need to adjust it, I'll get out, go in the parking lot, move the chains just a little bit, and then go back through and reweigh to see where I'm at. So off we go. Okay, so on this app, you go in here and you're going to put in the cat scale location number, 70, accept, and then it'll show you the location you're at. You hit accept again, communicating with scale equipment. Now you notice that Mindy and I are not actually in the truck. I did that because I wanted to make sure that the measurement was just the truck and the trailer, not us. So now I'm communicating. Fee is $12. Accept. It'll charge my credit card. That's waiting for Weighmaster authorization. So I believe it's communicating with people inside, letting them know that I'm on the scales, need to be weighed. Now it's processing. Do not pull off scale. And now I've got my weights. So we'll cover those weights here in just a second, as well as what my before weight was. I also weighed the truck and the trailer when I had the weight distribution hitch hooked up wrong. So we'll take a look at that and see where I was at with that compared to where I'm at now. All right, so we're good to go. Heading back to the house. We're back at the house, and I mentioned that we would cover the weights of the trailer with the new weight distribution hitch setup, as well as the weights from before when we had the weight distribution hitch set up incorrectly, and the pre-weights of the truck. So one mistake I did make when I weighed the truck empty is I was actually sitting in the truck. Now I know my weight, so I can subtract my weight percentages from the axles and get right about where I should be, or right about where I think it is totally empty, like I weighed with the truck and the trailer this time. So we'll take a look at this here. So the steer axle of the truck empty, unloaded with no trailer on it, 3460. The drive axle of the truck, 2480. Now the weight distribution hitch set up incorrectly, I went from 3460 on the steer axle to 3000 on the steer axle. That takes 460 pounds off the steer axle. That's not good. Essentially what that does is it gives you a very loose feeling in your steering wheel. The weight distribution hitch set up incorrectly on the drive axle, I went from 2480 to 3620. That is an increase of 1140 pounds. Now, this particular trailer has a tongue weight of 812 pounds. So to increase your weight on your truck, your drive axle, by 1140 pounds, that takes some work. So obviously I was set up incorrectly. My trailer axle weight there was 5420. I didn't have it set up right. I know that now, and hopefully we fixed that. So let's take a look. So on the new weight distribution hitch setup, I went from 3460 on the steer axle to 3240. That is a decrease of 220 pounds. Now, if you take my weight out of the truck from the pre-weigh, it takes it down to about 60 pounds off of the front axles. So that's good. That's very good. It is going to give us a little bit of an odd feeling in the steering, but not terrible, not terrible. Something you can live with. The drive axle went from 2480 to 3240. So I increased the drive axle weight by 760 pounds. Now, like I mentioned, the tongue weight of the trailer is 812 pounds. You do have the weight of the weight distribution hitch itself, plus the propane tanks, the batteries, stuff like that. So we didn't increase the 1140 pounds that we did before, which was, like I said, out of line, but we did increase a little bit, but we're still below the tongue weight, so that shows that that weight distribution hitch is taking some of that weight off of the drive axle of the truck. And the total weight of the truck, trailer, and everything is 12,120. So we are good there. I'm happy with those weights. So thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I mentioned before, we'll be bringing you a camping video here within the next couple of weeks. We've already got our reservation made, so stick around. We'll not only give a review of that campground, but we'll also talk about the setup, how we manage with everything that we got, and what we think we'll need after our first shakedown trip. So thanks a lot. We'll catch you next time. That's the socket that I'm probably going to... That train really doesn't like me. The next thing it says to do is to pull up on the chain off to weigh the trailer. Oh, really?
Recording at that moment.